Hey guys, how many of you find reading or studying fun? Personally, I don't. Personally, it's a chore to me. It can be distracting even after like 30 minutes of focusing on it. This is because of dopamine, a neurotransmitter responsible for motivating our body to do pleasurable activities and avoid activities that we deem unpleasurable or disjoyful. Overstimulation of this reward system can often lead to frequent distraction for said boring tasks. And to avoid frequent distraction, it is important to understand what dopamine is, how to lower dopamine in the body, and how to restrict overstimulation of the reward system in the body. To briefly explain, dopamine is essentially a pleasure-seeking neurotransmitter that naturally occurs in our brain and is released when we do tasks that we deem pleasurable as a natural instinct to motivate us to do the same repeated task continuously. The system can become overstimulated though as we continue to do tasks that we find enjoyable and don't do tasks that need to be completed that we find boring, like studying or reading or even meditating, yoga, something that's essentially non-pleasurable. We don't become addicted to dopamine, however. We become addicted to the task. We become addicted to doing the task because our body knows that it will yield more dopamine, and therefore we are more motivated to do said task. So we become addicted to social media, we become addicted to watching TV, we become addicted to playing video games because our body enjoys it more and yields more dopamine when we do that activity. After a while, our brain becomes naturally trained to do those activities repeatedly. So we need to lower our dopamine levels, and essentially what that means is we need to set aside time to do tasks that we find unpleasurable. We need to spend more time studying, we need to spend more time doing chores, we need to spend more time reading, catching up on news, because then we can essentially retrain our brain to seek the dopamine that's released from doing these boring tasks, and essentially retrain our brain to do these repeated boring tasks. These boring tasks become reborn as pleasurable activities. As painful as it is necessary to continuously do this because it's not just a one-time thing. Just because we hold back for one day and only do these boring tasks for one day doesn't mean that our brain has changed at all. We need to constantly be setting aside time to do our less enjoyable activities. We set aside timers to restrict ourselves from overstimulating our dopamine levels by setting aside timers that restrict us from doing our enjoyable activities as well. And one thing to mention, I would say, in terms of drugs, drugs release an insanely large amount of dopamine that our body becomes addicted to. We become addicted to doing the task of taking drugs because we're so addicted to the dopamine that comes with doing drugs. So if you want to be able to do these boring tasks like studying, then I would recommend not using any drugs at all because it will only distract you more. In the end, it is possible to retrain yourself. It's possible to relearn and understand what dopamine is, how to lower dopamine, and how to restrict overstimulation of dopamine levels in your body. It's possible to retrain. And in the end, boring tasks can become reviewed as motivating and pleasurable and eventually become those pleasurable activities that we enjoy doing at the moment. Thank you guys. This is dopamine.